So welcome to the workshop Reclaiming Identity, pivotal stage in continued reconciliation for fractured communities. You can find our bios online. I'm going to do a quick introduction. We are really packed because we want to bring to you a few examples, and we really want you to work on this yourself today. So I am representing, I'm Bethany Sharon Gill, representing the Peace and Reconciliation Network, which really came out when the UN began to look at faith-based actors and want to listen to them and have them involved. Then the World Evangelical Alliance established as a commission the Peace and Reconciliation Network. So we're global, we're a network, and so you will be encountering some of the people who are part of the network and what they are doing. So we are faith-based actors, but the principles, they are really for that continued aspect of reconciliation. And so first of all, we'll have Dr. Salim Munayer, who has founded Musalaha, is also part of the Karamina team. He is going to share with us, as it has come out of his work, this reclaiming identity. We will see through video Reverend Joseph Nyamatura, who's working, his work has come out of Rwanda. Now he's working all through Africa, but has come out of the genocide. What he has learned himself through his reconciliation process, and then leading other people through. Anka Histerman is here with us from South Africa. We'll hear more from her. And then Mr. Sem from Manipur, you will see him. It's really nice. He had to walk a kilometer to have even internet to send to us the videos that he sent to us. So we will begin with Dr. Salim.
Good afternoon. Musalaha is an organization that started as a result of the first Intifada. I assume that you know, as local organization, in the light of the fact that most organizations work for peace, reconciliation in the land, were not addressing culture, not addressing faith, religion of the people, and in that fact, they were to a large degree in their approach to our situation, they were very colonial. Or the people that are doing it are involved in it are people that came from the West and live in the land. So 80% of the organization in Jerusalem are run mostly by Anglo-Saxon Jews. Palestinians are involved, but not in the leadership. So Musalaha from the beginning was an equal footing for all the community. And very quickly, it's a grassroots with the belief in order to bring change into the situation. It's a grassroots, middle level of leadership pushing up because people in position of privilege and power are not likely to change. So without grassroots movement in the land, will not. And after identifying and really the situation that we are living in, and deliberately I'm not using the word conflict, we found not only diagnosis of situation is very important. Second, I don't have the time, we found out that the need to go to the desert encounter because the huge imbalance of power between the communities, it's really helped people to start moving into conversation and talking and trying to build this relationship, but also addressing it. What we found out in the encounter, 6 stages. I will not talk all about them. This is what we call the kumbaya, dipping the hummus together, the hallelujah stage for people that say. Then the second stage is we start talking about the situation, and people vent their anger, frustration, and usually the powerful that come to the meeting out of guilt are become the victim of the whole situation because they're attacked by the weak side. That lead to the third stage is withdrawal. We'll never understand each other, and you usually blame the others. In that process, the desert encounter help people to move to the most important things. Also today, I heard that in the confederation or federation idea about the narrative. Without transformation of identity and narrative, things cannot move ahead. Okay, sake of time, I'm doing that very quickly. So this is a reclaiming identity. Yes,
I'm sorry if I missed it, but was it desert encounter?
desert encounter that we install in order to start the process of reconciliation. We take Israeli and Palestinian into the Wadi Rum desert. They spent 4 days riding camels, walking, outside the pressure and equal grounding, rediscovering each other, humanity, breaking dehumanization and demonization, and learning how to have the first conversation together. It's essential, important, key in that. Thank you. So we come this session that today we're doing about reclaiming identity, and we have the Israeli Zionist narrative and we have the Palestinian narrative, bitterly competitive. The imbalance of power also plays in the narrative. So what happened here in order to have a change? If we can go to the next one. This is the situation when we, like today, the speaker, we're talking about the Holocaust, talking about Manipur, and reclaiming identities. There are several things that happen, what you do and what you feel. Many times people don't talk about the emotion that happen in the process of negotiation, of reconciliation. It is a situation where in-depth examining identity, because identity is the first casualty of conflict. Like if we talk about maybe, like if I see a man or woman, divorce, marriage, couple, partnership, their identity is shattered in that situation. So in every conflict, that is the pain. You need to take time for self-reflection and affirmation. You really need to think through. It's not sitting in a weekend in Geneva and coming up with a solution. You hear, you experience, you need to understand, you need to take the time to process things. And but that we need to give people the time. What you can do, you can say, they are wrong, so they are awful, and it's not ever going to work out. So basically you affirm your identity on the expense of the other, or you make internal decision to move forward and say, it's painful, it's hard, but for the sake of the future, for the sake of the children, sake of the grandchildren, sake of the community, I'm going to really work and try to find and build what we call a third narrative. So you need to have several steps. One step to be able to listen, and listening is really crucial. Listen, understand, do not mean agree to the other narrative. It's very painful after that to look into your narrative and to check into your historical narrative, was it true or not true? Truth here is very important. Then the attempt to move ahead. In that process, people feel stuck, distant, bitter, defeated, and frustrated. That's good. Most people want to run away. And I say, if you feel like this, that is the beginning of growth. That's the beginning of you really moving ahead. If you feel comfortable, if you feel that you're sure, you're not in good situation. But if you feel those feelings, so because feeling express a lot, you have to come to terms with your feeling indicator, something deeper that you need to process in order to understand what's happening. And here, the facilitator is very important in helping people to go through it. Let's move to the next one. So what it needed to change? There are several things needed to change in order to do that. One of them I already began to talk, bridging. Try to bridge the gap between the two narratives. Doesn't mean you agree, but try to bridge it. Again, the ability to listen, to understand, and to respect doesn't mean you agree. And that's very hard for our people. If Rachel was in one of them, people scream, shout on each other, and can sometimes, you have to hold them to the chairs, with that. Try to form a third historical narrative where the essential of each people group narratives come, but also how we imagine the future, how we imagine the next stage. Instead of just engaging in hatred, enmity, and destruction of each other, there is, if you're coming from a faith-based organization, we call it prophetic imagination. How we prophetically imagine future for people living in and not in violence and respecting each other, accepting each other. So to create a joint narrative. And that also is very important, focus on the area of weaknesses in both narratives. In each narrative, there's weaknesses that need to be addressed and to work on it in order to change it. And the next one, so I give time to the other people, this is really important. October 7 have proven that the way, especially Israeli Jews, remember the past, it was not redemptive. Remembering the past become acts for today attack, reaction to other people. So redeeming memory to counter victimization. If your identity connected to ultimate victimization, you have absolute view of the other. I am true, everybody against me, and as a result, because the world was silenced in Second World War, I have the right to do whatever I want to do right now. And so this is really important. And also trauma. And here we talk in Musalaha, we don't talk about individual trauma, we talk about collective trauma. The Israeli Jews have a trauma, and Palestinian continuous collective trauma since First World War, in fact, until today. And there is a need of identity transformation. If, for example, Israeli Jews see the state of Israel exclusively Jewish, there's no solution. If the Palestinians say there's no place for Israeli Jews, their identity is not opening to embrace the other side, it will not be solution. So the identity is very important. And restorative justice. Most people don't talk about restorative justice. And we have this system of injustice that in our situation, the one that suffered more, and we don't have the time to go through the history of it, the Palestinian, without not addressing the systematic of injustice system, it's not going to help. It's not going to, it will come back. And when it comes back, we get worse. And every cycle becoming worse and worse and worse, the cycle. So there's those areas that we found out that important to change. And what I will do after you do the exercise, what needed to happen in the context that we see right now, we're still in exploration in the context, especially what's happened on October 7, the awful things, and the genocide in Gaza. What needed to happen in both communities. So that will leave it to how we're doing time.
A question, if we can ask you, why is reclaiming identity the pivotal stage
Yes.
for the continuation of reconciliation?
That is a question. Thank you. Why that aspect of your identity as individual, collective, and community has to be reclaimed, transformed in order to move ahead. Okay, that's clear?
Yeah, so we're going to have you working on this aspect in there's three case studies that we'll present to you. And so do you have quickly, we've got 3 minutes, do you have quickly a question about what it is that we're working on, what stage? So we're not working on the initial opening up or, this sort of thing, but reclaiming identity. Let's have one question for Salim to clarify before you go into the process. Or was it quite clear for you? Salim went through quite quickly a lot of information. Any questions?
Because I was afraid of Bethany. But
It's quite clear? Okay.
Oh,
So,
did a good
yeah, that's great. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at Rwanda. And so there are two organizations. One is an organization that started working with people and really created villages, reconciliation villages, really focusing on this long-term reconciliation, the continuation of the process through. And then there's another one called Healing Hearts, Transforming Nations. And so this is actually more of that beginning type stage where people are brought together, where you have the victim and the perpetrator brought together. And it's had, in Africa, it's just going all around Africa because there's such amazing, powerful stories and instances where the perpetrator and where the victim, where the whole family has been killed in a brutal way, and that victim actually has come to the place right in this event, in the workshop of forgiving the perpetrator. And then there's been this process that needs to continue. Sometimes it has happened between individuals, but what is the understanding that actually we need to create a bit of a infrastructure, a bit of a place. We need to think about the continuation of reconciliation. How do we do that? So we're going to watch a little bit from Joseph, 2 clips, and let's listen for that. What is he saying about this sort of continuation of reconciliation, and what have they applied in Rwanda?
After the genocide against the Tutsi, it was very obvious for Rwanda that we needed to treat the pain and the trauma of the genocide, because in 95, 96, Rwanda was a very wounded country. All the infrastructures, institutions were destroyed, but also the human soul was in much pain. People were living in fear, in anger, in bitterness, and included the Christians.
The Musozi Ubumwe, which means Unity Mountain, is a project run by Rabagirana Ministries, and this project brings together genocide perpetrators and genocide survivors to live together in harmony through different programs that we run, including Healing Hearts and Transforming Nations. In this community, Ubumwe Mountain people are able to live in unity and in peace.
We wanted this village to be a model where the people who come to the schools will go and sit with the people, hear their testimonies, but also learn from them. They do crafts, they do many things together, and which is a very strong testimony that reconciliation is practical and leads also to prosperity and development. So not only the schools, but also to any other person who want to learn about healing and reconciliation, we encourage them to go to the Unity Mountain.
Joseph Naimatero is the founder of Rabagirana Ministries. He's been involved in this work of healing and reconciliation for over 25 years.
You will find that many people come to Rwanda and they will be asking, what is reconciliation? Yeah, is there a place where we can see reconciliation? Which was a very difficult question for us to answer, because our work has been to go to different towns of Rwanda, bringing leaders, first of all, church leaders or local government leaders together, take them through a process, and then go to the community, working with survivors, and sometimes we went to prisons and also working with released prisoners in the community. But sometimes these were events and encounters where they came to, but they went back to normal life. So it was always a challenge to go to them again and bring them back to give a testimony to anyone. So it is not an event that happened where we had a workshop or a seminar, but the Unity Mountain is reconciliation happening every day, and it is ongoing.
So I don't know if you could hear everything, but this is learning from Rwanda that it's not a one-time event. That there has to be the thought of how does reconciliation continue, and how do we get the people themselves to want to be willing to go through the next stages of reconciliation. So we want to actually have you work through some case studies, and each of you have a case study. Each table has a different case study, and we're going to have one from Manipur, one from South Africa, and one is the Israeli-Palestinian case. And so we're going to have a presentation first of a situation, and then we're going to give you time to work on that case and to come up with specifically how do you imagine this stage, reclaiming identity, how would it work in this situation that would you think would be effective for leading to this continued reconciliation?
Hello everyone, I am Sam from Northeast India. Today I'm going to share with you a case study of an ethnic conflict in Northeast India in the 1990s. Tribe A and B had lived together for generations in one of the states of Northeast India. They shared the same faith, intermarried, and coexisted in a relatively peaceful environment for many years. However, since pre-independence, Tribe A had been demanding separation from India, and they had established their own armed militia. Over the years, Tribe A had seen Tribe B as an obstacle to their political ambitions and geographical expansion. Hence, as early as 1950s and 60s, Tribe A armed militia had served quit notices and demanded land taxes from Tribe B. That fragile peace was destroyed in the 1991 when 5 innocent villagers belonging to Tribe B were brutally killed in a forest on their way to a neighboring village for a family program. What followed was a cycle of violence, killings, counter-killings, attacks, counter-attacks, burning and destruction of each other's villages from both sides. Eventually, the conflict subsided, but it ended without any long-term peace accord or understanding or reconciliation, leaving a deep scars in the minds and hearts of everyone. A person from Tribe B had carried deep anger and revenge feelings over the killing of his own elder sisters and 5 other villagers. And that is, in short, the context of the ethnic conflict I want to share with you today. Thank you.
So that will be one of the cases, and then we're going to have Anka share with us about South Africa.
So hello, my name is Anke, and I want to just share a case study from a region where I come from, in Mpumalanga. But before I give you the story, I just want to give you a brief history context. You'll have a more detailed one on the table, but it's about apartheid, and apartheid's origins lie in a colonial era racial segregation, which evolved and later was formalized into law by the National Party in 1948. This was actually institutionalizing A, white supremacy, and B, racial segregation. The system classified South Africans into rigid racial groups: whites, blacks, coloreds, Indians. And it also enforced segregation in housing, education, employment, and public life. So throughout the years, altogether, they say 3.5 million Black South Africans have been forcefully displaced and removed to homelands, or Bantustans as they called them. Here, they were stripped from their citizenship and also political rights. So while South Africa was transforming and transitioning into democracy with the first multiracial election in 1994, the scars, the emotional scars of forceful displacements, inequality, mistrust, they still remain. So, unfortunately, the legacy of apartheid continues to shape the political and the social landscape of our country. So here's the case study, the true story. The context: in the 1980s, there was a forceful removal of Black people in the Driefontein area. Driefontein is not too far away from where I live. And Saul Mkhize, he was the leader of this Black community, and he was leading a peaceful protest. During this peaceful protest, he was shot and killed. His widow, Mrs. Mkhize, we call her Mama Mkhize in the Zulu culture, if you have respect, it's Mama. So Mama Mkhize, for over 40 years, has carried this bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment towards white people. Apartheid ended a long time ago, but those emotional scars and wounds, they are still visible. So she actually told me last year in 2024, she went into the grocery store, Pick and Pay, and there she saw that white policeman that shot and killed her husband. And she went to him and she spat him in the face in front of everyone, and she walked out. So this is an example of a fractured community in a post-apartheid world. So the questions I want you to discuss are, how can real and deep reconciliation on grassroots level happen in a post-apartheid world? And also, how can an identity that has been shaped by division and a narrative be reclaimed to a new identity as a fellow South African? Thank you. That's the case study.
Select. We have it. That paper like a study. So the case study that I have for you, if you look, I'll read it because it's important. History and background situation. The Palestinian, since 1917, the Palestinian people have endured subjugation under Western imperial power that support the Zionist movement goal of establishing a Jewish state in Palestine. Backed by geopolitical interests and religious motivation, this support intensified after World War II, with the Holocaust guilt becoming a key factor in Western endorsement of Israeli creation. The 1948 Nakba marked a turning point as hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced, subjected to occupation, ethnic cleansing, and denied the right to return, laying the foundation for decades of loss and oppression. The Jewish people, particularly in Europe, that the other side, have faced centuries of persecution and anti-Semitism, culminating in the trauma of the Holocaust. The Zionist movement push for a homeland was rooted in the need for safety and identity preservation. But the legacy of historical suffering has often translated into a defensive posture in Israeli state policy. Following the October 7 attack and hostage crisis, Israeli society has responded with heightening fear and militarism, leading to 2 years of devastating violence in Gaza, marked by mass casualties, displacements, and destruction. Meanwhile, the West Bank faces ongoing ethnic cleansing and settler violence. Both Palestinians and Israelis continue to live with deep trauma, grief, and unresolved historical wound. So, is the true story I'm going to give you of two people that part of the work of Musalaha. In 2024, a group of Israeli and Palestinian civil society leaders joined Musalaha as an act of resistance and reconciliation. Notice both words, existing and reconciliation, seeking to humanize one another across a deeply unequal reality. Palestinians entered the process carrying the trauma of occupation, displacement, and the loss of many lives in Gaza. Israeli brought fear, moral injury, and the privilege of power. Midway through the project, two participants share personal stories that reflect the depth of their experience and transformation. One was a Palestinian man, formerly a medic in the armed resistance, who had survived imprisonment and violence. He chose to explore reconciliation as a new form of non-violent resistance. The other was an Israeli Jewish man who, shaped by the violence of the Second Intifada, had served in Special Operation Unit. A traumatic incident during his service led him to question the system he once defended, ultimately dedicating his life to peace building and trauma healing. As they shared their story, both confronted each other, pain across a clear imbalance of power and history. Palestinians speaking from decades of oppression, and the Israelis grappling with the discomfort of hearing about armed resistance. The dialogue revealed the complexity of trauma in both sides and the courage required to face it. Question for your group. I think this group, that's right. How can reconciliation become, and listen very carefully, a form of resistance when the wounds of war are still open? Second question, what does it mean for both Palestinian and Israeli to reclaim their identity in the wake of genocide? That's questions we deal in our groups.
Okay, so in 20 minutes, you have on your tables again a bit about the history, the case studies to go over.
Oh, I need to.
And what we want you to do is come up with some thoughts, some ideas. We have here a little bit for you to look at. These were some of the things that we said are needed for change, not all of them, but some of them. And then we give you about 20 minutes, we're going to have you share with us. So you have in the middle of, let's get first one. And you have a pen, okay? And so go ahead and however you want to use that paper and that marker to share with us kind of what your ideas are. We're going to then share that with everybody. Now, we have Uncle who understands the case study in South Africa, lives there as a part of it, and will be helping with some questions. And of course, Salim will be helping in this group. I'm going to help on behalf of Sam, which isn't quite as effective, but I don't think the group spoke. So let's 20 minutes, and we can work on. What was the main thing that you, from your learning and your discussion, what was the main thing that you think in this particular case could actually be applied? And that actually might be just as finding out like that case continued reconciliation. Okay? So, please.
Well, the main answer is I think we have is to form an identity that is not a rejection of another. So not saying what defines me is that I'm not them. And instead to form a shared identity, for example, along the lines of belongingness to the land, which both parties have a very strong feeling about. And also, for example, that both parties are survivors of a conflict when the conflict is over. So there are a lot of shared identity and values that also come from a historical background as well. And by doing so, we can reconcile and kind of resist the identity of victimization that's being adopted by both parties, the current political structures, the international narrative, and also just the propagation of violence and manipulation.
Okay, thank you. South Africa, you ready? Or are you ready? Can you present? Yeah. No. It's already arrived the last. Okay, so as time goes, can you just add the tree, please? Tree. Yeah.
Okay. In our case, we focused on taking practical steps, like focusing on the common needs, vision, and the common history. We all know that the common history could have bad or positive and negative sides. So we need to learn from this history and to build for the future. We need to find a way to coexist, even if we do not agree on the same level. We noticed that there is an absence in racism in books and education at schools and policies, but it's still present in the real life. That's why the government should have real equal economic and social policies to in order to have like equal equality in the future. And the last one, do you want to say it?
It was more about the narratives for identity and how they translate into current socio-political or economic realities, where there's, as you were saying, there's an imbalance or asymmetry in the way that the economy is run or the policies are translated. I think the narratives must come from both, or how many parties are there, in order to have that represented in economic or political representations.
Please, thank you.
Was improvised.
You have some kind of 2 steps or 2 phases that you're thinking of. One is that of share stories and grief, which is a way of memorialize together, which may bring new truth and new narratives. We're just talking for the group. Which means also find ways of getting together between the 2 different parties. And one thing that may help in this case is that these groups have actually lived together in peace for generations. So they haven't always been in conflict. So this may be one thing to remember. And then there's some kind of a second phase, which is put into action a new narrative, a prophetic way of seeing things by doing new things, which may be an economic collaboration, maybe, if this is possible, which can meet the interests of both groups. And also maybe develop common valorization of Manipur, of their region. Why not by tourism or whatever? I don't know. These are some ideas we had.
Okay, thank you for working on those. We're going to now actually hear from the people who were involved in the actual case and what actually did happen. And we'll begin with Sem.
And years later, in 2004, his 4-year-old daughter asked him, "Daddy, is Tribe A our enemy?" Her innocent questions shook him to the core. So he asked himself, where did she learn this from? He realized he had passed on this feeling of hatred against Tribe A through stories told at home. He also realized he did not want to leave a legacy of bitterness to his children and the next generation. So he turned to God in prayer for the strength to forgive. 2 years later, in 2006, an unexpected encounter changed everything. From one of his friends, 2 persons from Tribe A, from his own neighboring village, walked into his office in Delhi. Now he was sitting face to face with the people he once hated. Long story short, after a long and honest discussion, they decided to work together. It started with a small school initiative with over 30 plus students in 2007 in Tribe A village. Now, today, the school has grown into 400 plus students. It has become a center of excellence, not only in academics, but also in music and football coaching. It has brought the people together, help in rebuilding relationship and reconciliation between the 2 villages and the larger community in their area to some extent. Forgiveness was not easy initially. but it helped them overcome the feeling of hatred, fear, and anger. It has brought personal peace and healing. Forgiveness is not the end of the story, but it is just the beginning of a new chapter of healing, reconciliation, and a future filled with hope. Forgiveness does not change our past, but it changes us. It changes the way we look at the future. And it also helps us to become peace ambassadors in a small way in our own capacity at personal level and in our society and larger community. I hope this story help us to look at our own conflict situations differently and recommit ourselves to be peace ambassadors in our own individual capacity. Thank you, and God bless you all.
And Anka is going to share with us from South Africa.
Yeah, I will tell you when to put the slide on. I'm going to tell you, and please. So, after our discussion at the table, it's very clear and that peace building has to have the vertical and horizontal actors, peace actors. So our government has done a lot for reconciliation from top to bottom. But what I've experienced in my context, in my town, is when real change happens and is lasting and has an impact, it does come from a grassroots level. So local peace actors in a fractured community. So in my town, in Kondo, there is a group called Esther Group. This group is a melting pot of women from different races, different social statuses, different denominations, different ages. But what binds and unites them together is their faith. So because we are faith-based, we believe that God created everyone in his image. So no one is better than the other. So we also take the example of Jesus who came to serve. So a door opened for us to go to Mama Mkiza. And as the Esther group, we went to Mama Mkiza to listen to his stories. Listen and, what happened? Tell me your trauma. And then she also invited other black women so that they could also come and tell the wounds, the scars that they still have. And then you can put on the slides, thank you. And then the white women in the Esther group, they started to wash their faces. They repented of all the sins of the time. They repented of the laws from the previous regime, which made them feel less human, which persecuted them. And they cried, and they stood in the gap as white people and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want to wash your feet. I'm so sorry for this pain. And something changed and shifted in everyone that day. The Zulu, you can go through the Zulu women, they started to sing. They sang, a door was always shut, but now it's open. And they were just crying and laughing. And they said they never thought that the day would come where a white woman would humble herself, acknowledging their pain. And Mama Mkiza actually, she stood up and she said, I feel light. For the first time, I can forgive that white policeman, even though he didn't ask forgiveness. Someone stood in the gap, washed her feet, and she could forgive. And she said after over 40 years, she feels light. So she has a new, she said she had a new identity. The new identity as a fellow South African, where she feels worthy.
And she also feels victorious through forgiveness. So that's just an example of what a grassroots level can do in a fractured community. Thank you, Ankas and Celine. Oh, sorry, I wanted also to say, Mama Mkiza also joins the Esther group now. So it doesn't stop there. This is not Mama Mkiza. So it doesn't stop there. It's a continued building relationship. It's an ongoing process. It's not just the ticking the box.
Okay, excellent. So you can imagine what's happening between Israeli Jews and Palestinians going through that process. Tears and anger and hurt, withdrawal coming back. And they said, in order to change, we need to acknowledge that there are oppressed and oppressor. It was very important. But also there is a responsibility for both sides to take. So the oppressed people, Palestinian, because when you hurt someone, their identity is being damaged. There is a need to reclaim identity. Is survival, memory, and resistance. Sumud. That's very important. Resistance in Palestinian culture, and we survived that. So the memory of the people that pays the price. The way we remember those people that died, their life, their achievement, but not to remember in order to be violent or hatred to others. That is very, very important. For the Israeli, reclaiming identity is confession. When that, in order for oppressor, any oppressor, as we heard right now, matter of fact, you just did it, because at that time, the Africans, the white, they were the oppressor. And by coming and washing the feet, you reclaim your identity, but also you did confession by doing that. And that is very, very important process. And the oppressed need to receive it, to accept it. So it's not only you ask forgiveness, also the person that is the victim need to acknowledge and receive it. And I think this is part of what happened in the dynamic that we had in Europe post-Second World War, is that in many cases the German asked forgiveness, but not all those people said, we accept that. And we accept your, it's one-sided, because confession, repentance has to be both-sided. To be relieved from the guilt, to be relieved from, in order to restore your identity. And like young German right now say, I don't want to hear any more about that period of time. This is my ancestor. Don't put the guilt on me. That is something I'm not resolved. So it's very important. Transformation and moral reckoning. We have to come with our moral failure as humanity, as a people, and we need to come to terms with that. If we don't come to terms with that, we're not learning the lesson. What is the, where we fail, what need to be done, how we correct it, and how we bring it into our educational system. One of the things you learn from Rwanda, that the Catholic Church, for example, put in reconciliation, confession, and repentance part of the curriculum of the teaching, and they found that it's very, very important. If you don't put it, that you have not did the moral reckoning for that. Both processes demand truth-telling, and that really need time to sit, learn. Of course, there is different opinion, but by spending time and studying exactly what is happening and bringing expert or record, we can come to term and agree on certain things. This is the truth. This is what happened. Maybe there is disagreement, areas confusion. We need to do more studies. For example, what really happened on October 7, the government is not really allowing us to investigate it up to now. We know a lot of atrocity happened, but really what's going on there? We have not. Or journalists are not allowed to go into Gaza. And what we have is we don't really, that need to be revealed. A lot of things need to be revealed. So, and then acknowledgement. This is what we did. Wow. You know, my wife taught me that. All the time I have excuses. She just say, you did it. Say sorry. And confronting injustice. This is confronting injustice. It's a really important thing that we need to confront injustice. Injustice also by the oppressed, because when you hate or demonize other things, it is act of injustice too. And then you have passed forward identity reconstruction that resists the cycle of violence and open space for the others. And it's really, this is really important. So what you see here in our work right now, maybe it will change more, that there is a need for both. There is a need for both sides, but from both sides there is different things that it's needed. Okay, so I gave conclusion. That's right.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give that things here those slides because from our curriculum teaching training is developed as a result of our experience. If you want to know more about the 6 stages, even so we are not allowed, so don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. There's this 6 stages of the cycle that we discovered. If you want, I brought several coffees. And reconciling justice. In many circles, there is this separation binary between justice and peace. And what we're saying, they are connected. You cannot separate them. They are very much connected.
Yeah. So we gave you a lot. We ran out of time for questions, but we're here and you can ask some questions. But there are threads. So because we work globally, there's certain things that we see. It doesn't matter where we're working in the world and what the conflict was. There's certain things that over and over we see. And so identificational confession, the Healing Hearts Transforming Nations also uses that. And it's the most powerful aspect of coming to that place of being able to reclaim identity. It's first someone standing in the gap, bridging the gap, and then the ways to afford. So thank you for joining us. We have one more slide with some QR codes if you want more information. The bios are online, and we're here for any questions now. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of Geneva Peace Week.
Thank you. And thank you, Bethany, for doing the hard work.
I can be